Alright guys, I'm MrBitter. This is going to be game number 2 in my Learning from Losses series. This one's going to be a Protoss versus Zerg on the map Shattered Temple. So before we get started, I'll show you I'm here up in the 12 o'clock position as the red Zerg player. My opponent, Mr. Nginjo, spawning as the blue Protoss down in the 6 o'clock position of the map. This is a fairly long game, so I'm going to put it on ×2 for the opening moments while I talk about just the map and how it typically plays out. This is a map that Zerg players for a while were really disliking because of the fact that Protoss gets a very secure natural with a nice narrow choke, and then a very free third base, as he just has to pass through these rocks to secure the island. Or he also has the option of taking this gold base, which is fairly defensible so long as he has a decent army. Zerg, on the other hand, has to struggle with these rocks. Killing rocks with Zerglings takes forever. Roaches do okay, but if you have to have roaches out before you're able to take your third, it creates headaches. So I feel like traditionally this is a map that's going to favor the Protoss player, whereas recently Zerg players have been learning to kind of utilize some aggression to punish greedy, expansive play, and to really abuse timings to try and make sure that they stay ahead. So I'm going to back it down to ×1 here now that we're 3 minutes in, and just start talking about the game. So I have scouted my Protoss opponent. I see he's got 2 gases, a gateway. He's going to be throwing down a cybernetics core. This is going to look very standard thus far. On the Zerg side of the map, 100 gas having been mined, speed starting, queen on the way. This is a 14 gas, 14 pool speedling opening. So Zerg's going to be looking to expand here very soon. You see 6 lings on the production tab here. That's just to make sure that anything that's built in the natural to block a hatchery is easily dispatched. But Protoss opting not to do anything like that. And these lings will clean up this scout. And then back down here on the Protoss side of the map, there's the cybernetics core finishing. A zealot is out. Drone just trying to be annoying, getting chased away by the zealot. So nothing particularly eventful happening just yet. This probe will die, expansion on the way, possibly a little bit late. I think most typically you see it expand around, and there's that pylon that we were talking about. And that's going to be a bit of a headache, because the majority of our Zerglings are well out of position, so 1 ling and 1 drone takes quite a long time to kill a pylon. So that expansion is going to be heavily delayed. These Zerglings are going to come up and put a little bit of pressure on this front zealot. And this is one of the first mistakes we make here. This stalker pops out, and rather than immediately disengaging, we stick around and try to kill the zealot and end up basically just throwing those units away. 1 zealot will die at the front to 6 lings. Absolutely will die. Stargate now going to go down for Protoss. Interesting place to choose to put that. But if there's a sentry or a stalker to support it, 1 zealot can hold against a very large number of Zerglings. So that was definitely a mistake in that regard. So again, Toss opting for Stargate play. Still no knowledge of that from our Zerg player. Just trying to drone up and inject and play as normal as we can. Now, here's something important. This ling did come up and scout 2 zealots and a stalker. So right away, that tells us that something fishy is up. So this overlord is going to be sacrificed. A player that's aiming to play as economically as possible is going to be investing lots of early gas and all of his gateway build time to sentries. By taking zealot stalker, Zerg is able to immediately ascertain that Protoss is investing that gas elsewhere. So my immediate reaction was DTs. That's why this Evo chamber is down. But an Evo chamber is also a good thing to have in case of Stargate. Now, unfortunately, this Overlord is not going to see anything, just the 2 gateways. So really feeling strongly that DTs are what's coming at this point in the game. Probably going to see a couple Spore Crawlers go down. But that DT guess is in fact going to be incorrect. +1 melee now starting. First Void Ray about to finish up, and an expansion now going down for Protoss. So Protoss opting for kind of a 3-gate Stargate expand, which is a little unorthodox. I think 2-gate Star is more standard. Lings will finally scout this Void Ray, so now we know what's up. And going to try to apply a little bit of pressure to the front here. Now, the fact that Protoss has 3 gates is actually really going to help him here because he's able to warp in enough units and get some good force fields. So these lings will do some damage, but not nearly enough. Killing a sentry, killing a zealot, kind of having some poor, making the poor choice of sticking around a little bit too long and losing maybe a few more Zerglings than we would have liked. Gonna select this this probe here, and then just back off. This expansion will finish, and at this point in the game, Protoss is feeling pretty ahead. But we've spotted the Void Ray, so we know that we need these extra queens. So extra queen is popping out right now. So this Stargate harass will actually be deflected. No damage is going to be incurred. This is a happy time for Zerg. Now, in an ideal situation, Zerg is going to go expand again right here. Protoss is invested in Stargate. Zerg knows that the Protoss ground army is not something that he needs to be particularly worried about. So this is a great time to take an expansion. But once again, rocks block the natural third, rocks block the gold base. So the next expansion that Zerg is able to take is actually the far natural. But with Void Rays out on the map, you can't really do that. Not until Hydras are out. So Lair is morphing, and Zerg is kind of forced to sit on 2 base for the time being. Another option would be to try to take a third over here in a spot that it's unlikely for Protoss to scout. But as long as Toss knows that an expansion is starting to go up, he's going to be able to deny that with Void Rays. Now, critical mistake there, Protoss losing that Void Ray. At that moment, Zerg needs to take a hint and go expand. So this is mistake number 2. As soon as the Void Ray dies, an expansion has to start, because the Void Ray is the only thing preventing us from taking that expo. But as you can see, we've got extra money. Money to spare, but no expansion starting. On the units tab, we can see the Zerg has droned up very well. Fully saturated on 2 bases. Needs a third. Here we are, 10.5 minutes into the game. I think a good time for a Zerg player to want to expand is about 7 minutes and 30 seconds, 8 minutes. Even in the face of aggression, that's a good time to be thinking about an expansion. And we're just really, really super late here. And this is going to make it very hard to stay on par Protoss in terms of economy. Now, if you look at the income tab, Zerg is staying well ahead. That's because Protoss is not doing a good job staying on top of his probe production. When he remembers to make probes, however, the Chrono Boost will allow him to catch up fairly quickly. Still no third base having been started anywhere for Zerg. Almost 12 minutes into the game. Rock's still not down. This is a huge, huge deal. We can see on the units tab, going up to 64 drones. So whenever a third does come online, we will be able to saturate it immediately, which is important. But with no third anywhere in sight, not feeling too good about the shape of things economically. Also worth noting, check the supplies here. Protoss is staying very even, in part because Zerg is not macroing well, and also in part because Protoss is macroing exceptionally well. So perhaps we can call that mistake number 3. A part of macro is production. So again, our third base is late. We're missing a hatchery. Our production is behind as a result of that. Also, our injects have not been perfect. So a little bit of pressure coming from Toss here, and this is going to be a little tricky to deal with. We have Hydras out, drones being pulled to kind of serve as a buffer between the Hydras and the rest of the army. Hydras die very quickly, but as long as there's something in place to make sure that the Hydras can do damage freely, they do very well. So we're going to have a little bit of an exchange here. Third base finally starting very late. A little bit of an exchange here, but Hydras do exceptionally well against all gateway units. And we can see on the production tab actually losing about 13 drones in that exchange. That's a really big deal. Nope, only 10. 10 drones died. But still, those are 10 drones that we would have liked to have used to immediately saturate this third base. Protoss will be repelled here. Hydraling is excellent against any kind of a gateway army, so this is absolutely a great choice. Even managing to snipe the probe and the proxy pylon. So Toss will have to back off this aggression. If you look in the Protoss base, he's gone. He's only on 5 gateways, so he doesn't have a whole lot of production either. Zerg macro still lagging behind a little bit. Gas is getting a little high. Minerals are certainly a little bit high. Injections are lagging behind. If we look on the units tab, we can see we've got 2 queens, but one of them is... Okay, he just injected the natural hero. A little bit more action taking place here. Hydras just showing how good they are against Stalkers, especially when they have the +1 attack upgrade. And just kind of pushing forward, trying to secure some position. Establishing position is important in any game, any strategy game, because it's from that position that you coordinate any additional actions. if I can control this area, I can coordinate my next push. Protoss now taking his third base, also quite late, 15 minutes into the game. Protoss probably wants to be on 4 bases at this point. And Zerg money still getting very high. The macro is proving to be a big deal here. No drones have been made since that original attack, and still pure units being made here by Zerg. Just trying to clean up the last of these stalkers, and we are going to be successful in this. And in this position, Zerg is starting to gain a little bit of momentum. He's completely, I mean, Protoss is in full retreat. He has no third base. Well, I mean, he's about to have a third base, but Zerg has sort of established that position that we were talking about. Protoss still trying to maintain control of the middle of the map, but against Hydralisk Zergling, he's not going to be able to do that with just pure gateway units. So Zerg definitely in a good position here. All these zealots will die quickly to the Hydraling. I'm wondering where are all the reinforcements. 12 Hydras being built. These Lings giving chase to the Stalkers. They will get a couple kills here, and the Hydras will kill this pylon. So now Zerg's in pretty good shape, but if you can see here on the production tab, we've got a Dark Shrine starting for Protoss, and that's going to be very important here in the later stages of this game. Evo Chamber is down. We've got +1 melee and +1 ranged attack, so the DPS of our army is going to be pretty substantial. And a 4th base being started now for Zerg. Macro finally starting to kind of fall back down to where it should be, but Zerg very low on gas. Very low on gas. Gas is, of course, the limiting resource in all matchups. Now, this is the exact move that Zerg needs to make in this position. Okay, we've dealt with the pressure. We've established a little bit of momentum. Let's make sure that we're able to deny the Protoss third. But Protoss, again, has this Dark Shrine. And a critical mistake, there is no Overseer with this army. Guys, I can't stress how important it is to always have detection with your army. If this Overlord was an Overseer, this third base would be dead. But because this is not, Protoss is able to warp in a lot of DTs, and he's going to make very short work of this Hydraling army. DTs do great damage, and with no detection, it's compounded. Further complicated is the fact that Blink is done, and Protoss is able to deny the detection. So Zerg basically loses all the tempo that he had gained there. Also important in that in the time period that Zerg was pushing, he was building drones. That's exactly what Zerg is supposed to do, but that's under the assumption that he's going to be able to maintain map control with the army that he has. Because we lost that army to the DTs, because we lost all of our detection, we've been put significantly behind. This DT is going to kill a few drones, I suspect. And Protoss is going to go ahead and pressure the front here. He's got Stalkers and DTs. Detection is quite late. Now here comes the second toss push. The DT in the expansion. Wow, 7 kills. Going to knock out the Spine Crawler as well, so he's going to be doing tons of damage. Protoss not going to be able to break the front, but he's able to. He's doing tons of damage here. Look, this DT has 11 kills before he's finally dealt with, and he's knocked out a lot of drones. 20 drones in total being lost by the Zerg player. And because of that huge swing in momentum, look at this, Protoss able to deny this 4th base. He's gonna take out that 4th at the expense of a few Stalkers, but that's a great trade for him, because if you look into the Zerg main, mined out. Look into the Zerg natural, starting to thin. We've got one I guess base with lots of minerals to spare, but it's not very well saturated. And really, we needed that gold to kind of keep up. Now, Hydralisks are great units, and they're going to continue to be very effective against the gateway composition that Protoss is centering his game plan around. But as you can see here, Storm Tech is done. High Templar are not in play yet, but as soon as they enter the fray, these Hydralisks are going to become laughable. A Hive is on the way. A Hydralisk Broodlord is kind of the in-game composition that every Zerg player should be gunning for, especially in this situation. Broodlord's, of course, good against everything. Hydra is great at keeping Broodlords safe. Protoss is going to go and take this 4th gold base. And here are the High Templar. Once these guys have energy, a Hydra army, especially a Hydra army off creep, is going to be laughable. Little harass happening here. Notice the supply difference. 150 supply for Protoss to 110 supply of Zerg. Not a good position to be in. Protoss has made 90 probes, though, so we could say that 26 of that supply advantage is just in workers. That's good and bad. 90 probes is too many, but his economy is going to be amazing, especially when he secures that gold base. The other side of that is he's going to lose some probes here, and it's not even going to matter because, hey, he built 90. So 10 probes, 15 probes, maybe even 20 probes gonna die. Yeah, 20 probes exactly gonna go down, and Protoss is still in a fine situation. Now his probe numbers are right where it wants them to be. He's got a secured third. His natural is thinning, but he's gonna have this gold base online soon. So Zerg has retaken the gold at this point. Corruptors are out. Now Corruptors not really worth a damn until they turn into Broodlords. Some Infestors coming out as well. Infestors obviously very good against Blink Stalker. Capable of revealing DTs with Fungal. But High Templar are pretty good at shutting down Infestors. Feedback is just a really powerful ability. Greater Spire is going to finish up here soon. Zerg has retaken the supply lead. And this game's, at this point, looking pretty close. Similar worker counts. Even base counts by both players. Income, Zerg slightly ahead, but not for long, as Protoss is about to have this gold base operational. Look at all these cannons. It's very smart. Just making sure that nothing gets in to prevent that gold from coming up. Protoss knows if he can secure that gold base, he's going to secure this game. And this army is just looking pretty scary. Blink Stalkers are just, in general, very good. And all the things that are good against Blink Stalkers are kind of bad against High Templar, with the exception being Broodlords. Broodlords are really good against Stalkers, but Blink, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a control thing. DT being killed there, second DT going to die. Protoss just trying to kind of rally up the map and do some damage, but finally having detection in place, Zerg able to deter that. So we've got 3 Broodlords out, 3 more on the way, and both players sort of closing in on a max. So we're going to see some movement here. Zerg's starting to take a little bit of map position, not aware of where Protoss is on the map. Protoss with his tower control is going to see Zerg, and here's a huge mistake here. Zerg is out of position. The Broodlords are exposed, the Hydras are getting stormed on all the pieces, and they're off creep. That's important. And Fungal going down and doing pretty good damage. Fungal does great damage to a ball of Stalkers, but it doesn't have the same kind of killing power that Storm has, for example, against something like the Hydralisk. So Protoss wins this battle pretty decisively, but if you look at the supplies, the game is still fairly close. 138 supply of Zerg to 140 of Protoss. Now here's a mistake. Zergling drop flying right over the Protoss army. There goes about 8 supply and a couple Overlords. And here we go. Hydra's popping out. They're going to die immediately. Storm going down on top of drones. And this is kind of the big swinging moment. We could call the battle that happened in the middle, I guess, a swinging battle. This is the big swinging moment where Protoss takes complete control of the game. 4th base goes down. All these Stalkers will die, but in the process, look, Protoss has secured his gold. Protoss is taking a 5th. On the income tab, we can see Protoss is blowing us away. 2,200 minerals per minute to 1,500. Zerg still has a respectable army in that he's got Hydralisks, Broodlords, and Infestors. But his numbers aren't what he needs them to be. His upgrades are lacking. We've kind of lagged out on +2 attack and 0 armor. Same as Protoss, in fact. Protoss just keeping the pressure on, not allowing us to get that gold base running. So by all means, things are looking very, very grim here. Zerg has to secure a base. We're trying to take this the 9 o'clock natural. And just more Broodlords being made, Lings, Hydras in production. Trying to load up some drops. Zerg knows that the only way back into a game from behind is through harassment and expansion. Remember that, guys. The only way back into a game when you're behind is through harassment and expansion. Look at all these gateways. This is absurd. So when you're losing, the way you catch back up is by doing damage with things like drops, Nidus, mutas perhaps, the way you secure that advantage is by expanding behind it. So that's what we're trying to do here. Here's the expansion. Here comes a little bit of drop harass. Those Overlords were supposed to have units in them. I don't know why they're empty. Alright, here you go. There's another drop loading up. But the problem that we're running into, Protoss is just too big. With his big economy, he's able to make more stuff than we can really answer to. He's now mined out his natural, so his economy has dipped a bit, but once this base comes online, that will shift back into his favor. Here comes our first drop. Now this is only 6 Zerglings, so all he has to do is warp in some Zealots to clean it up. That's probably all he's going to do, maybe even some DTs. Yeah, Zealots will deal with that handily. Another drop is going to be on the way here shortly. Yep, Hydralisk drop going to the new Protoss base, but look at all this army that's just in position to deal with it. So Zerg basically gasping for air, being slowly choked out. We do, in fact, secure this base and start mining again, but it's just too little too late. Protoss up to 100 harvesters, which is way overkill, and a completely maxed army. And Zerg just with a handful of Hydras and Broodlords. There's just not a whole lot we can do to combat this. Blink Stalkers in these kinds of numbers are just super strong. Void Ray support does wonders for dealing with Broodlords, and it's fairly obvious here that when these armies meet, it's going to be even a couple Colossi out. So when these armies meet, it's definitely going to favor the Protoss player, even making some cannons up here on his cliff, just in case a drop comes from this exact angle. Protoss pushing out, knows that that Zerg's taking this base, and there will be a bit of an engagement here. Void Ray is going to roast the Brood Lords and the Infestor. Hydra's kind of engaging poorly, but it wouldn't have made a difference with these Colossi out. Zerg army going to be cleaned up handily, and Protoss is going to secure this game. A few seconds remain as these Infestors desperately try to fungal Protoss to death. It's not going to matter. Not enough stuff for Zerg here. Protoss is just too strong at this point in the game. So there's the GG. So let's talk about everything that went wrong, just kind of in summary. First and foremost, we have to be more mindful of what our opponent is up to. Protoss applied a lot of pressure in the early game that Zerg was actually able to repel, I won't say easily, but was able to repel regardless. And there was certainly a point in this game where Zerg had a very real advantage. But because we weren't mindful of this DT tech, when we went to press that advantage, we basically lost our entire army, and from that point forward lost all tempo in the game. Tempo is something that people don't really talk about enough. It's your ability to dictate the pace. If I have the tempo, I'm saying, no, you can't attack me because I dictate when and where we fight. If I have the tempo, I'm essentially saying, no, you can't expand because I dictate what happens around the map. So it's a very important principle to kind of to grasp and to realize and to work towards. So maintaining tempo, you could maybe change the wording there a bit and just say maintaining map control is the same thing, and that's probably the two are probably very close. So we lost that, and when we lost that, we were basically just behind for the rest of the game. The DTs managed to give Protoss lots of harassment. He was able to do some economic damage up in our third. Because we were forced back into our third to kind of deal with this, and back into our natural to deal with his push, our gold base was basically lost, and Toss was just able to kind of establish his own pace from which to play the rest of the game. And you saw his macro got crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, maybe 14 gates, maybe 15 gates. Just mass Blink Stalker with some Templar support, and eventually adding in Void Rays and Colossus. Some of the other things to consider here, Hydralisks off creep are just not mobile enough to dodge Storm. And as you can see, the Zerg creep spread is pretty terrible. Spreading creep is one of the most important things in this game, and it's something that I have not been doing enough. So it's very critical that we have that creep. We need to at least control half the map with our creep spread alone. That gives us more mobility with our Hydras, allowing us to dance in and out of Storm. And if you spread creep well enough, it actually allows you to aggressively deny expansions. If you have creep covering this entire area, Protoss can't expand there. And it is not unthinkable for Zerg to have this entire place gooped up by 15 minutes into the game. And if you can recall, 15 minutes is when Protoss was just taking his third base. So creep spread a definite shortcoming in this game. Something else that's definitely worth noting is the macro was just not where it needed to be. Notice 179 energy, 200 energy, 200 energy. No queen here. That's very clearly indicative of bad injections. In spite of our money being respectable at the end of the game, you never want to have 1,000 minerals unless you're completely maxed. So macro could have been a lot better, and with perfect macro, I think we would have been able to be much more decisive with our defense of the initial Protoss pressure. So there it is, guys. This is episode number 2 of Learning from Losses with Mr. Bitter. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And keep your eyes peeled. We'll be doing more of this in the very near future. Thanks for watching.